The Mississippi River starts as a stream you can walk across at Lake Itasca in Minnesota. By the time it reaches Louisiana, it drains 41% of the continental United States and moves 589 million tons of freight a year. About 60% of all American grain exports ride barges down this river to the port at New Orleans. Corn, soybeans, wheat. Billions of dollars of food passing through one corridor to reach the rest of the world. 2.3 million people drink from it. 13% of the country's gasoline is refined along its banks between Baton Rouge and New Orleans. You probably think the Mississippi has always flowed through New Orleans. You probably think it always will. Both of those assumptions are wrong. The Mississippi has changed course at least 7 times in the last 7,000 years, jumping sideways across Louisiana to find a shorter path to the Gulf. And the only reason it hasn't is a single set of concrete gates in the middle of rural Louisiana that most Americans have never heard of. These gates are in Concordia Parish, Louisiana, and went up in 1963. They nearly failed in 1973, were permanently weakened by the experience, and are being inspected now for the first time in almost 4 decades. The structure keeping it in place is 63 years old. The math is patient. The concrete is not. In 1944, a geologist named Harold Fisk published a series of maps for the Army Corps of Engineers that tracked every known channel the Mississippi had occupied over the past several thousand years. The maps look like a tangle of ribbons, each one a different era's river, layered on top of each other across a floodplain 60 miles wide. The river never stayed in one place for long. Every 1,000 years or so, sediment built up in its own channel until the water found a steeper, shorter path to the Gulf, and the whole system lurched sideways. The Mississippi has been trying to switch to the Atchafalaya for more than a century. By 1850, about 10% of the Mississippi's flow was escaping into the Atchafalaya through a connecting channel called Old River. By 1950, that number had climbed past 30%. The Army Corps of Engineers ran the projections and concluded that, without intervention, the Mississippi would abandon its current channel by the 1970s. New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and every refinery, chemical plant, and port between them would be left sitting on a saltwater estuary. Congress authorized the Corps to stop it. They called in one of the world's leading experts on river sediment transport to help design the fix. Hans Albert Einstein, son of Albert Einstein, a hydraulic engineer at UC Berkeley. Construction started in the late 1950s. The old river control structure sits in Concordia Parish, Louisiana, between the towns of Lettsworth and Morganza. There is nothing else around for miles. Sugarcane fields, flat delta land, and a 566-foot concrete dam with 11 steel gates, each 44 feet wide, built to hold the Mississippi River in place. The Corps completed the first piece, called the Low Sill Structure, in 1963. A companion overbank structure went up on dry land next to it, designed to handle extreme floods. A navigation lock kept barge traffic flowing between the 2 river systems. Then the Corps built an earthen dam across the original Old River Channel and sealed it shut. On July 12, 1963, the uncontrolled flow of water from the Mississippi to the Atchafalaya stopped for good. Federal law now requires the Corps to maintain a 70-30 split. 70% of the combined flow heads south toward New Orleans. 30% exits through the gates to the Atchafalaya. The ratio was set in the 1950s because that was roughly the natural split at the time. The Corps froze the river in place. For 10 years, it worked. The Corps declared victory. Their own internal report said they had harnessed it, straightened it, regularized it, shackled it. Then came the spring of 1973, and the Mississippi nearly broke free. Heavy rain hit the Tennessee and lower Mississippi valleys through the fall and winter of 1972, saturating the ground. In March 1973, more rain fell across the Missouri and upper Mississippi watersheds. The river rose and kept rising. The flood that followed was the 3rd worst of the 20th century on the lower Mississippi. At Old River, the difference in water level between the Mississippi side and the Atchafalaya side climbed toward the structure's design limit of 37 feet. The gates were wide open. Water pounded through at velocities the engineers had not anticipated. Then a wing wall on the low-sill structure collapsed. Water began scouring the foundation underneath the dam, pulling sediment from beneath the concrete. The structure started to vibrate. The Corps opened the Morganza spillway downstream, lifting 42 of its 125 steel gates to relieve pressure on the control structure. Floodwater poured into the Atchafalaya Basin, killing thousands of head of livestock and white-tailed deer. At Old River, engineers dumped rock into the scour holes to stop the foundation from washing out. They held the structure together with emergency measures for weeks. The flood receded. The low-sill structure survived, but surveys afterward revealed permanent damage. Engineers reduced the safe operating differential from 37 feet to 22 feet. The structure could never again handle the loads it was designed for. Congress authorized a second dam, the auxiliary structure, which the Corps completed in 1986 to take pressure off the original during floods. Rocks from the 1973 emergency repairs are still visible at the base of the low-sill structure. In 2023, the Army Corps awarded a $34.2 million contract to dewater the low-sill structure for the first time since 1987, so engineers could inspect the damage underneath. Climate models project that the Mississippi will see larger and more frequent floods in the coming decades. The two highest floods on record at Old River both occurred after 2010. Between Baton Rouge and New Orleans, the Mississippi passes through one of the densest concentrations of industrial infrastructure in the Western Hemisphere. Refineries along that stretch process about 13% of America's gasoline. Chemical plants operated by Dow, ExxonMobil, and others line both banks. Dozens of drinking water intakes serve 2.3 million people. The port of South Louisiana, which stretches 54 miles along the river, moves more agricultural tonnage than any port in North America. In 2017, it handled 47% of all U.S. waterborne agricultural exports. If the Old River control structure fails, the Mississippi shifts to the Atchafalaya. Flow past Baton Rouge and New Orleans drops to a fraction of its current volume. The channel slows and shallows. Salt water from the Gulf moves upstream. The drinking water intakes pull brine instead of fresh water. The refineries lose the water they need for cooling and processing. The barges can't navigate a shallow channel. The port goes quiet. This almost happened during the 2022 drought, without any structural failure at all. Low water levels let a saltwater wedge push 70 miles upstream from the Gulf, threatening New Orleans' municipal water supply. The Corps built an emergency underwater levee of dredged sediment to slow the intrusion. A full diversion at Old River would make 2022 look like a rehearsal.